Well, when I saw the commissioners meeting, that was just the last one Tuesday that Penny recorded. I didn't get a chance to be there, so I was sure thankful that Penny was there recording it so that we could see kind of what was going on. But Under Sheriff R.O.A.R. brought two issues up to the commission. One was to replace a car that was destroyed in a high-speed pursuit.
Well, John, you're really jumping right into it, man. Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
should we mess around a little, or should we get right to it?
Well, I mean, you got to think about they spent $3,000 for equipment to have this on the internet, didn't they? This meeting?
Yeah. Well, but it wasn't done on their equipment yet. It was still done on Penny Swan's.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm wondering. Like, where the hell?
Oh, I see what you're getting at. Okay.
Yeah. Why wasn't this recorded?
Let's get that. Let's get that at the end. Okay.
We don't even need to talk about it. I know they spent a lot of money to have audio equipment or video equipment in here. They didn't even have it for theirs. We're lucky that Penny was there.
Yeah. Thank God for Penny for going and taking her time to do these things, because without the people being involved in their government and critical of their own government, there's not able to see it, we can't keep a republic.
And there's also not a court reporter there.
No.
Right? So there's no
Well, they do keep minutes. Jody up front keeps minutes.
Yeah, but that's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's not play by play. It's not like
word by word.
Game. Yeah.
You could do a lot of he said, she said still with that.
Well, and the thing is, Jody doesn't want to produce a 100-page book every meeting.
Right. Because these are 3-4 hours long.
Right. So she goes by the agenda and she does a good job. She does what she's supposed to do that way. But a recording is better because you can get exactly what was said, and you can go back and review it, and that can be good or that can be bad.
By the way, you didn't introduce our guest here.
Well, it's because we don't have a thing where we start anymore. Remember, it's just kind of fling into it.
Well, why don't you say hi, Steve?
Hi guys, how you doing? I'm Steve.
Steve Wisdom's my crazy neighbor, and he's been coming out to the Republican meetings, and he's a conservative. He's also got a lot of.
He's recently discovered he's a conservative.
Yeah, the hard way.
Like the rest of us? Yeah, there's no easy way to learn that you're conservative, is there?
No, it's
you're stolen from, you're arrested, something's taken from you.
Let's face facts. When you see the dragon uncloaked, it's hard to see the dragon as anything else.
Sure.
And that's a hard reality. So when you finally realize that, hey, this is a republic, and hey,
well, you start looking at all other issues differently as well. Stuff that's not even important to you.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, it's all important to you.
Yeah, because before, I mean, I know kids all the time that they can tell you every person of the cast of Jersey Shore, but they couldn't tell you who the president or vice president was, let alone any of the elected positions.
The '93 Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, but even more importantly, they couldn't tell you who their local township supervisor is, or any of the people on the township board. This is a Republican style government, and those are the people that are most important to us in our government.
And our shows, we haven't been producing a ton of shows, John, so we have a lot of topics, but let's go ahead and jump back into Carl Albright being at this county commissioner meeting.
Well, Under Sheriff Albright, and
what did I call him?
Carl Albright.
Under Sheriff Albright.
He has a title.
I got to get those
he has
titles
a title
down.
He earned. Let's use the titles that they earned.
Yep.
Because it sounds disrespectful if we.
That's correct.
And we should be respectful. I mean, whether we respect the person or not, we have to respect the position.
That's correct. Yep.
And so anyway, and that's very important in a Republican style government. So anyway, he was addressing the county commission. And he found the car that they had that was destroyed in a high-speed pursuit, what the insurance company was going to pay on that car. He found another car that the insurance company will pay for it even.
Somerset car?
No.
It was county.
It was a county car, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so it happened on...
it happened in Somerset, though, too.
They crash a lot of those.
Yeah. Well, you're going to... It's a risky thing. You're going to have that.
High speed, I understand.
That's why one of the things, in this...
Collect your ticket, huh?
Well, yeah. Yeah, I am one that believes that we've got to be very cautious and judicious with high-speed pursuits.
It's better let 1,000 men go free
than to want for that's right. And so anyway, because if you're going to to tout public safety, but yet you're going to chase people down the road at 110 miles an hour. You're not really
for a civil infraction,
right?
Yeah, you're not really.
And the truth is, you can't outrun the radio.
No, and the thing is, we've got these great big numbers on the back of every vehicle, right?
Yeah.
So we know where that vehicle's going to park that night.
Yeah, whether you want the numbers there or not, you're going to get one.
Yeah. So, anyway, we digress. Carl did a good job. I mean, he found Under Sheriff Albright did a good job. He found a car in Lenawee County that they were selling that the cost of putting it on the road with all the equipment was exactly what the insurance company was going to pay on the destroyed car.
Cool.
Beautiful.
So so it's no extra money out of the taxpayers' pockets, which I thought was very responsible. But anyway, so then the second thing he brought up was Sheriff Parker was asking the county board to approve him hiring a private lawyer to answer the Michigan Campaign Finance Act complaint that I filed.
Well, let's be transparent, John. You filed a complaint with the Michigan Finance Committee, right?
Yes.
On Sheriff Parker.
Yes.
For violating their rules and regulations in regards to that.
For violating what I believe was their rules. Now, let's go
it's
into...
just a complaint.
It's just a complaint. Let's go into the Michigan Campaign Finance Act just a little bit. There's reasons why they have that there, and that is because just earlier before we got on air, I was talking with Steve how we have a tendency to always believe the authority, right? Even our money is based on the full faith and credit of the government. So we have this natural...
a pastor doesn't lie.
Yeah, we've got this natural thing to believe.
You want to believe that.
Well, those in authority.
Yeah. There's no reason
it's
you
a
want
good
to.
Feeling, you know?
And we should. And this is why the faith and full faith and credit is there. So there's a couple different things that we're dealing with. The reason why those campaign finance acts were there is if I put on a uniform and a badge, especially, and I tell something to someone, they're more apt to believe that than if it comes from just the common Joe, right?
I agree.
Okay. So if that's the case, those people that are in positions of authority, if something comes from, let's say, a county commissioner rather than the common Joe, people have a tendency to believe it more because of the authority behind them, right? Because just like we said, we respect the position, not the person necessarily, but we respect the position. So the Campaign Finance Act came about so that these rules so that people can't take unfair advantage in competitions, right? That would be like such as a transgender male running a 100-yard sprint in a female track meet, right?
Why'd you open up that can of worms?
because it's very apropos. It's very apropos for here. That person has a very big unfair advantage.
Hey, John, I'll just go ahead and throw it out as a good example. Because I was talking with Julie Gaines quite a bit about this because she's voted no for this.
Yes.
She was the only one.
Very proud of her.
Which we appreciate.
Yeah, anybody that is in our party understands why she voted no and was appreciative of that.
And just let me say this. To be the only dissenting vote is a very lonely and hard place to be, and she took the courage to do it.
I mean, for some people, right?
For anyone, it takes courage to stand.
It takes principle.
It takes principle.
Yeah. So I was talking to her about this, and at first thought when you watch this, you don't take everything in right away. You got to watch it 2 or 3 times just to get a really breakdown of it. How about this? So with Tim, he violated, and then he's going to be charged.
Okay,
well,
let's
I don't want to stutter here.
First off, let's use the word
sheriff.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly.
Violated, because it's just a complaint to be investigated.
That's correct.
Well,
but
the interpretation.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, with the interpretation, I think that's...
Right, but the thing is, that's how I read it. It's still up to an investigative team, a third-party independent investigator to look at that and decide whether it was.
Until that point.
That's right, because there is history between Sheriff Parker and I.
Sheriff Parker in 2016 was guilty of campaign finance. Right?
Yes, the Hatch Act did come down and admonish him for doing something that was against the Hatch Act.
I remember the warning.
So pretty much it was just a slap on the wrist, don't do it again.
Which
right?
is, and here's the reason why they do that. And a lot of people get upset. And even people
I'm okay with that.
I know, but a lot of people I talk about with this are like, well, that's just crap. Why should we even complain then about stuff? Because people are going to get a slap on the wrist. Okay, it's just like Bruce Caswell brought up in this thing. He said when he first ran, he hired somebody, or he got somebody that knew, I don't know if he said hired, but he got somebody that knew the campaign laws because he didn't. And so, and then Marnie Cass.
It's easy to make a mistake.
Marnie Cass brought up in this meeting as well that it's on the individual because the law is there. The law is there for them to read, and it's on the individual to read the law and try and do their best to follow it. So what the Campaign Finance Committee does in the Hatch Act is if it's a minor complaint, a minor infraction, they give you the benefit of the doubt, which is fair.
Yeah, that's
right.
fair to say. Yeah, that's human, right, Steve?
Yeah, so they give you the benefit of the doubt, and that is proper.
All right. So the example that I use for Julie is, Julie, when you go run again in 2020, you go out. Why don't you just cheat on purpose? Why don't you go ahead and violate this on purpose? Because all you're going to do is get a slap on the wrist or a fine.
And it's free campaign money.
And then you want the community to hire your attorney to stop this.
That's a great analogy.
So why not just cheat every time?
And that's a great analogy because the thing is, if Julie, who is a commissioner, is running against Common Joe, people are going to believe what Julie says over Common Joe.
And it's just going to be a fine.
But it's self-evident truth. Now, here's the other thing.
If you're going to hire an attorney on the taxpaying dollars.
And then the circle never ends.
Exactly.
But first off, we jumped ahead here. If she does that the first time, she's going to get a slap on the wrist, admonished. But with that first complaint and that first admonishment, there always comes a little phrase, whether it's the Hatch Act or the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, it always says a warning that if you do anything in the future, they will consider it willful and knowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Because now at this point in time, once you stuck your hand on the burner and you burnt yourself, you're supposed to know that it's hot, right? So if you do it again, it's that thing of do me wrong once, shame on you. Do me wrong twice, shame on me.
Try it, Bush.
Because you're supposed to.
You might have that saying here in Tennessee.
So you're supposed to know after that happens, right? So with every one of these complaints, the first one, if they give them the benefit of the doubt, but they always put the warning. So on this one, and the reason why I made
is it a separate one? You said this one. Is it not that identical? I feel like it's very similar.
It is similar.
It is similar.
It's very similar, but it's from two different. One is federal and one is state. However, they both are part of the campaign stuff. And if we understand anything, our Constitution has to mirror the federal Constitution, right?
So in short, John, for the audience, Under Sheriff Albright went up and Tim Parker doesn't want to use the attorneys that represent the county. He wants taxpaying dollars to pay for his attorney, a different attorney for $162 or $165 an hour. He wants taxpaying dollars to pay for his defense for his error.
Okay, now let's stop right there and let's just deal with that one issue.
Yeah.
The attorney he wants to hire. So let's defend his position here first.
Okay.
Because that's only the right thing to do.
Yeah.
The attorney he wants to hire doesn't cost any more than what the county attorney would cost.
Okay.
So the cost out of the taxpayer dollars is the same. Okay, so he's finding an attorney that's doing the same thing. Go ahead, Steve. You wanted to say something?
So no matter who defends him, we're still paying for it.
Well, okay, now that brings me to the second point. It doesn't matter whether it's a separate attorney or the county's attorney. This is something Tim did not in connection with his duties, but as
yeah, right. The county commissioner said that he was doing his job, or they thought at least that he was doing his job. He wasn't in his full capacity of his job.
Well, he wasn't supposed to be, right?
Yeah.
He was supposed to be doing this as an individual if he was doing it. That's why he's the one that should be paying for the attorney. He's
on his
the
own
one
dollar.
that should be paying for any fines. And let's say just on an outside chance, because this does have a misdemeanor criminal offense to it. If, let's say, it gets handed off to the AG and the AG says, okay, yeah, it was a misdemeanor, does the county then all spend a year in jail? Or is it just Sheriff Parker? So, see, this is what we have to look at. It's not something that the county should be paying for. This is something that Sheriff Parker should be paying for.
Commissioner Ruth Brown, well, all of them on the stand except Commissioner Julie Games, felt that since Sheriff Parker, first off, they call Sheriff Parker a government employee of the county.
Right, and he's not.
So that's number one. We need to protect our county government employees. I'm thinking, well, what if he did something like murder his wife? Are they going to protect him then?
Well, let's protect all of our citizens.
Well, what happened? What happened with John Schilling? Did they pay for his lawyer?
Exactly.
They didn't.
John Schilling, that maintenance gentleman, they didn't help protect him and pay for his defense.
No. And now they're going to say, well, but they didn't take it anywhere. But he was still facing an authoritative board,
and this isn't a
board.
lawsuit. So everybody on the commissioner board a couple days ago was like, "This is a lawsuit. We need to protect him."
Commissioner Brown said multiple times, over the top of everyone while they were talking, that it's a lawsuit and we have to defend the county against the lawsuit. It is not a lawsuit. It has never been a lawsuit. Now, she might be being misled by the letter that I read, I believe the month previous, in which I said lawsuits could be levied on both the county and individuals for any Campaign Finance Act violation that was done. So if the county, anybody that authorized the use of county funds...
You're talking like Mark Wiley, right?
That?
The chair. Well, I mean...
Well, yeah, I mean...
That's an example. I mean, he went on the radio show. They did a radio commercial with Spot in whose full capacity, and same with Sheriff Parker. There could be potential lawsuits there.
Right, and what it says in Michigan Campaign Finance Act, Michigan Compiled Law 169.257, or
wait, John, go ahead
Section
and
57.
slow that down. Go ahead and say it again. So say it slow.
I'm sorry, Michigan Compiled Law 169.257.
That way they can look it up themselves.
That's right.
Before you jump into that, Steve, what do you think about using your taxpaying dollars to pay for Sheriff Parker's error, his solo error?
Even if it's only a few dollars, I don't think I'm willing to accept any amount of theft.
Good answer.
Yeah, that's a good one.
It's something that my dad said. If he'd steal a nickel, he'll steal $1.
Okay.
That's correct.
So if we look at Michigan Compiled Law 169.257, section or paragraph 2, subsection A, it says very clearly, the complainant or any other person who resides or has a place of business in the jurisdiction where the use or authorization of the use of public resources occurred may bring a civil action against the public body or person acting for the public body to seek declaratory, injunctive, mandamus, or other equitable relief, and to recover losses that a public body suffers from the violation of this section. So, at this point in time, now everybody but Commissioner Games on that board violated this because they just authorized the use of public funds in his defense. Right here, very clear. And I warned them about that in my letter that I gave them a copy of, that myself or others could sue anybody that had a business under Section 57(2)A.
I did ask Julie, can they can they go back either A, through a special meeting, or B, in the next meeting to say, oh, you know what, we made a mistake, we're not doing that.
Yes, they can do that.
Yeah, she didn't know for sure.
Because they can rectify their mistake.
Yeah. Which I think we would accept.
Yeah.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean,
hey, thank you
my
for
bad.
My
bad.
Because
is
here's the thing.
Exactly.
Here's the thing. I don't think that they did this with any malintent or nefarious. They didn't do this nefariously. They did this, they made an error, and that makes them nothing but human. That's all it does. It just makes them human. Yeah. So they can go back and go, look, we made a human error. And
well, with credibility comes responsibility.
Absolutely.
I prepare for every job I go to.
Absolutely. So
it's almost like, yeah, but when you see something like this, I find it. I understand it's not nefarious or malice, if you will. But it's like watching a Three Stooges show, there has to be a certain level of understanding sometimes.
You're a little hard on them, and here's why.
I am being hard on purpose.
And I understand. We need to be critical of our government, but the other thing is we have to understand that they're human. We are a government of the people. That means nobody's an expert when they run for those positions and get in those positions. They're going to make some mistakes. However, if they make those mistakes and they come back and correct those mistakes, I say we give them that pass. Just like
I
like
agree.
the Campaign Finance Act and just like the Hatch Act comes down on that first one and slaps people's hands because they give them the benefit of the doubt that they may not have known. After that, then it's once you know something, you can't go back and be ignorant again.
It's like we were talking about principles.
It's strictly principle.
You need to
morals and principle.
Yeah.
But when you talk to when I talk to some of these county commissioners, it's like talking to a brick wall. They want to protect like their own, the upper executive part of people. I don't understand. If I was in that executive branch and one of the members committed murder, I'm not going to go out and defend that person.
Well, see, this is the problem. This is why we have. I
guess I'm comparing it wrong, but I mean,
it's like when someone calls your dog ugly. You're never going to accept that. You're just going to defend it.
Well, it's like do you remember the case over in Branch County where the lady was drunk and belligerent, and she was in the intake area, and there was 5 officers.
The officer slammed her,
and she had her cuffs. She had cuffs. She had her hands cuffed behind her back, and he drove her to the concrete, and she hit her face, and there was blood all over.
Yeah,
her place.
who's going to defend that officer?
Wait a minute. Let's go farther here. Those good officers did not arrest the other officer for committing a very heinous act. That was uncalled for. That was not. That was a criminal act.
Yeah, shouldn't have been resisting.
So
stop resisting. Stop resisting.
Doing my job.
That brings me to a good point, Steve. That you brought that up. Brings me to an excellent point. When the police go after somebody and they uphold the law, right? They arrest someone or they do something. Everybody goes rah rah. They uphold the law. When the prosecuting attorney prosecutes somebody because of a law they committed, whether they stole a candy bar or whether they embezzled $1 million, everybody goes rah rah, uphold the law. When the judge sentences somebody to 25 years to life, everybody goes rah rah, uphold the law. When a citizen says, "Hey, I'm going to make a complaint here because I think the law was violated," all of a sudden, they're a horrible person. What are you doing?
And it's not, you can't charge anybody because you're not executive, or you're not. You don't got the power of the sword.
I have so no power
whatsoever.
Filed
a grievance.
A grievance, a complaint, and under the First Amendment, I have the right to address grievances against my government. Right? I have the right to that.
And somehow you are chastised.
Yeah, and I get things like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not crying here. I could care less.
Victim.
But I get I'm not a victim.
I'm a victim when I get my tax bill. I'm like, what the hell is this?
You're
a victim of taxes. But I'm not a victim here. But it really gets me how people go, well, that Rutan, he's just bitter because he lost an election. Okay, let's take that.
The election. Yeah, what was that last comment, John? When was the election or something like that?
2016.
Yeah. Okay, Hillary.
Okay, yeah, they called me Hillary. I thought that was great. But the thing is, okay, let's say that I am bitter. How did that make the sheriff break the law?
Yeah, like it doesn't matter if you're bitter or not bitter.
That's right. Let's say a police officer arrests a guy for not paying his child support, and that officer's bitter because he's paying child support. Does that make that officer wrong?
Yeah, not at
right. So nobody would argue that, but of course, because I lost an election, I must just be bitter. Yeah. So if I'm bitter, how does that negate the facts, or how does that negate, or how did I make someone violate the law?
Well, a lot of people would call this petty, right? That's kind of like I guess you could say the feel that people are.
I think that you guys are fair though, because you go after and you give everybody the benefit, and it's not just the one person you're singly every time pointing out.
But like you just said, John,
let's look to have tripped twice.
Let's look at the Shannon Handy case.
Yeah,
that was petty.
Yeah, well, when I came out of that courtroom and I said that to Brady.
Let's look at when you got assaulted by
Fred Fowler.
Fred Fowler, a township supervisor, and we filed a police report on it, and it went to the prosecuting attorney. What did the prosecuting attorney say about it?
He said it was chicken shit stuff.
Okay, so he's saying an assault is petty. Is
that a legal term?
He's saying an assault is petty, but what Shannon Handy did was not petty.
Well, I asked him,
and then they're going to say this is petty. Nobody's ever given me the book of the list of crimes that are petty.
Well, I
to
thought
those that are
seatbelt tickets.
important.
I thought seatbelt tickets were pretty petty, but
Well,
they're still writing those.
yeah.
I love getting pulled over with someone on a motorcycle for my seatbelt.
You don't wear your seatbelt on a motorcycle?
He doesn't, but apparently I have to.
Yeah, so I mean, like a lot of people would say this is petty, but it's not petty because this is how cheating happens in elections.
But the other thing is, it's not just elections. We live in a Republican form of government. This is a republic. Remember, and we've got this right on the R.O.A.R logo. You know, when the lady came up to Dr. Franklin and said, "So, Dr. Franklin, what have you given us?" And he said, "Madam, you have a republic." And here's the important part. If you can keep it. The only way we keep a republic is to be critical of our government. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to be angry and mean, but we do need to be vigilant and critical of the things that they do.
I mean, I think people give their waitress more, crap.
Static?
Yeah, I mean,
Static,
I've seen people freak out on their waitress.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
I tell you what, if I have a booger on my face, let me know.
right,
Right?
thanks,
So
man.
if I was the sheriff and I made a mistake, let me know.
Right.
I'll correct it.
It's a busy
right?
position. We just
I won't be this pompous. I won't be content to cop. I won't. Let me know.
Right. And you know what? Most times...
Unless I had some malice or ill
well,
intent.
that's the thing. Most times if you just make a silly mistake, and it's just a mistake, it doesn't make you evil. It makes you human. But what makes you even more human, what makes you noble, is when you go, "Hey, my bad. I made a mistake and I'll correct it."
Yeah, sorry.
That's what makes you noble. And the problem is we don't seek nobility anymore. We don't seek honor anymore.
Well, John, why don't you go into your little breakdown because you've been taking notes all night,
Oh, yes.
right?
Anyway, so if we look at it, and that's one of the things I wanted to bring up is when this first came up, when Under Sheriff Albright brought this up, the first thing that Commissioner Brown started saying is, this is a lawsuit. We've got to defend ourselves against a lawsuit. And even when she was corrected and was told it's just a complaint,
Right, because
she
you mentioned it on
continued.
Facebook Live,
Yeah,
and Penny's like, it's not a lawsuit.
Yeah, she continued to call it a lawsuit, and it's not. Now, here's the other thing. If we look at what happened to the sheriff in Livingston County, I don't know if our listeners know about that, but we had a sheriff in Livingston County that campaigned for Bill Schuette when he was running for governor, and he did it in uniform, and they showed the car in the background. There was a Michigan Campaign Finance Act complaint made against that, in which they came down and they fined the sheriff, not the county.
And by the way,
the sheriff $200.
I did try calling today, and I did get a voicemail, and I left a voicemail because I wanted to know.
Yeah, we want to talk to
Did
them.
they hire an attorney for him? Like, did the county pay for
Right.
that?
Now, the other thing is, this is just an investigation. You don't need an attorney for
That's
an
right.
investigation, right? Because the other thing is, if they pull you out of your car and they say, "Well, we smell weed," and they find weed, and you go, "I want a lawyer," they're going to go, "Yeah," after booking,
right.
right?
Yeah.
You'll get a lawyer when you go to arraignment, but
Usually you ask for your lawyer when you're guilty, right?
well,
No.
You should always ask for a lawyer.
Right.
You should always observe
that
your
just
Fifth
one too
Amendment
many
right to
TV
remain.
shows
Yeah,
for
that's the problem with America.
Yeah.
Is too many
Yeah.
TV shows.
Yeah.
So I was just tonight. I was just my wife was watching a program, and I kept going.
Can't do that.
I gotta call. That's
Vigilante
wrong.
cop shows.
Yeah, and so finally she got mad. She goes, "Can you just pay attention to your paperwork and stop bothering me about my show?"
Yeah. You should watch ER with her.
Oh
You
yeah.
should
Well, I
like-
do, and she's a big Grey's Anatomy fan, and
Yeah.
as we're watching that, I always go, "Nope." She goes, "Would you stop it?" So anyway, so the thing is, they brought up they wanted this lawyer. Now Bruce, and if you go to Penny's video on,
He's the biggest surprise for me, John.
well, no, not for me.
Caught me off guard.
Bruce is very reasonable. Bruce is very level-headed. Bruce is very common sense about
Commissioner
stuff.
Bruce.
Oh, I'm
Caswell.
sorry. Yes, I'm sorry. Why? See, you started out calling him Bruce, and you made me do it. Stop it. You're
It's because we
influence.
see these people often, so
I know.
we're not.
I
you
know.
We all live.
I
in
know, but
Hillsdale
we still
County.
have to. He has a position, and that's Commissioner.
I mean, it's just so easy because we're all so relaxed
right.
about it.
But Commissioner Caswell, he brought up a very good point. He said, "Look, instead of hiring a lawyer, how much is the fine? Can we just pay the fine?" Now, when that was done, Under
Yeah.
Sheriff,
Why are you looking like that, Steve?
Under Sheriff Albright was
why are you doing that? Now the audience can't see what you're doing, but you're like look like you're flipping out.
That's what they do to us when we get a citation. It's just pay the fine. If you're not guilty, it's easier just to get it over with.
Yeah, just pay the fine, right?
Yeah,
That's
just
what
get
the
it
plea
behind
bargain.
us.
That's what the plea bargain thing's all about. But when he mentioned that, a lot of people went a little bit spastic. And Under Sheriff Albright was like, well, we got to defend ourselves against this. And of course, Commissioner Brown was into we have to defend ourselves against this lawsuit. And number one, it's not against the county. It's against Sheriff Parker.
He's not a government employee.
It says Rutan v. Parker on the complaint. It wasn't Rutan v.
Hillsdale County.
Hillsdale.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's be clear about that. Now, the reason why they don't want to do that is because at the bottom of the letter, it says that it could be handed over to the Attorney General's office, in which the Attorney General's office could bring about criminal charges for misdemeanor, for a misdemeanor, which is up to $1,000 fine and up to 1 year in jail.
Hey, do you think Andy's going to cover this, by the way, over at the Hillsdale Daily News?
No, absolutely not. No, he won't cover that.
just wondering.
No, he won't. So anyway.
So now, is he going to, even if he pleads guilty and to, like, say, a lesser charge and do 93 days jail instead of a year?
A plea bargain?
Yeah.
Well, here's the nice thing. The jail's overcrowded. Maybe he'll get early out.
Or work release. Maybe he can have work release.
But no, that's wrong. We're making light of
something very
something
serious.
very serious for someone, and that's not right. But the fact of the matter is, he's looking at, and the reason why he's looking at that is because I included the OSC complaint in which it said very clearly that if at that time Lieutenant Parker, if he did anything similar to this again, they would take it as a willing and knowing violation of the law. Now, if we look at Michigan Compiled Law 169-257, that's what it talks about. It says that if it's a willing disregard for the law, that it can be right here under 4, a person who knowingly violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable if the person
and this is directly from their site, right?
this
This
is the
isn't
law.
you that's right.
No, this is the law. Section 57.4 is very clear. It says a person who knowingly violates this section is guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable if the person is an individual by a fine of not more than $1,000 or imprisonment for not more than 1 year or both, or if the person is not an individual by one of the following, whichever is greater. So if it would have been Rutan v. County Commission, then A and B would be applicable.
Okay.
But it's not. It's on the individual. So Section 57.4 is applicable. So if it's knowing, and that's what the sheriff is scrambling, and that's why he wants a lawyer.
And that's why he wants this board actually to kind of like go in and defend his illegal action.
That's right, and to pay for that. Now, on the sign, I did file a complaint on the sign as well, because the sign did not have, and Under Sheriff Albright said, well, that sign was corrected in 2 days after that. And some of the signs, to tell the whole truth, Under Sheriff, some of the signs were corrected in which they put the address, but they still negated that was paid for with
regulatory or whatever,
with regulated funds.
Regulated, yeah.
Okay, so they still didn't put that on there, and they only put that on some of them because the 3 that were right around my house never got that.
And that wasn't even if I'm not mistaken, that gentleman Tim, whatever his last name is, I forgot what it was. He's I don't even know how he's associated with the sheriff department.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
Any individual can do that, but when he did that and he collected funds for it, and he has to put that on there. Now they did the same thing to him that was proper. They gave him a warning, and that was it.
That they did.
Yeah, they just gave him a warning and said.
Okay, I didn't know that they did. I didn't know. I didn't.
Yeah,
I guess
that's not being passed off for investigation. They made a determination that one is over and done.
Cool.
And
we didn't hire an attorney for him?
No, and I wouldn't. And that's because it was over and done. And so they kind of convoluted that in the county commission meeting, in which they brought up that the that there was 2 complaints and they brought these 2 together. Well, by the time they were talking about the sign complaint, that was already discharged. That was over.
Yeah,
and
why
done. They'd
even
already made
talk
a
about it?
decision. Yeah, so why even bring it up? But then again, yes, they didn't hire a lawyer for that person.
Yeah, so
Right?
strange.
But I guess that person wasn't a county employee or an elected
I mean,
position.
I'd never heard of them hiring an attorney for a county employee. It's beyond me.
Well, they do, and here's why. And this is why the MMRA, the insurance company that the thing has, and I've got to bring this point out. In 2016, when the Anthony Hart case hit, Commissioner Wiley was briefed on it, received the notice that the county was being sued.
Oh, and he didn't bring that out to anybody.
Not only did he not bring it out in a county commission meeting, he never brought it out to any of the county commissioners. And of course, I took a lot of slings and arrows on that one because I told them that they had a certain amount of time to bring it to the public's attention that they were being sued, or I would. And of course, they didn't, so I published it on social media. Of course, I was the bad guy for that too. It's a good thing
Okay,
I've got
Hillary.
big shoulders. Yeah, Hillary. So then the Andy Feather case hit. And never once did they discuss that in an open meeting that the people were being sued under that one.
I mean, because Sheriff Parker's being sued in these cases.
Right. And then
Right?
there's
there's several lawsuits against Sheriff Parker.
or the sheriff's department
Or the sheriff's department,
county itself.
Yeah, right. And
right?
did we hire, I mean, like, were they talking about hiring attorneys for them in those cases as well?
Yes, and our attorneys did protect them in that, and here's why.
Or trying to,
Well,
right?
we're trying to, and here's why. That's because what happened in the context of their duty.
Right.
So they were doing what they felt was their duty to do within the scope of their job.
Steve, does campaigning for a millage sound like a sheriff's duty?
No.
That's not that's not in section 51 of the Constitution anywhere. And for anybody that wants to know, if you look up the Michigan Constitution and you go to section 51 or you go to chapter 51, it has all the duties and responsibilities of the sheriff. It tells everything about the sheriff's department.
what
It
about-
tells all of that.
How many individual offenses of the campaign issue are we looking at, or is it just the signs, or is there
No,
radio?
no,
it's just it's the sheriff going around in his official capacity.
Right.
And now that brings
is
us
it printed or spoken?
Yeah,
Is
now
it-
that brings us to something else. I was a bit dismayed on May 1st, the Tuesday before the election.
And this is the radio ad we were about to bring out.
Yeah.
So Mark Wiley, Commissioner Mark Wiley and Sheriff Parker. Well, first and foremost, Commissioner Wiley and Commissioner Wiley and Sheriff Parker went to several communities, from my understanding, or at
Yes,
least one.
yes.
But I think
And Sheriff Parker and Under Sheriff Albright did as well.
I think Commissioner Wiley and Sheriff Parker went together in, from my understanding, in a county car or
Yeah.
county vehicle,
Yes.
and went to communities promoting this millage in townships.
Well, and here's the thing: if they were just going to talk about the millage and say what it's about, and because some people said, well, how come you didn't file a complaint on Commissioner Brown because of her what she calls them something communication?
Yeah, that 42 union.
Yeah, that they go to and talk. And the reason why is because she's, at that point in time, when she's holding these things, she's not advocating for or against something. What she's doing is she's doing these things as an informational thing for people to find out about
Correct.
things. So at
But
that point in time,
Sheriff
you're
Parker
not,
was in
that's-
uniform that day.
right.
Well,
so
it's hard to say that he's.
well, but the thing is, if Sheriff Parker's just there answering questions and bringing out what's in the millage and what's needed is one thing. But when he says, I encourage the voters to go and vote for this, now you're advocating for that ballot initiative, right? And that's exactly
in full capacity.
that's right. And that's what happened on WCSR. On WCSR, they introduced Commissioner Mark Wiley and Sheriff Tim Parker. So they announced them, even though nobody can see whether they're in their official capacity. Once they announced it as that,
Titled.
they are in everyone's minds, for all intents and purposes, in their official capacity. And in that, if you are in your official capacity, there's a little criminal code called 750.
Is this MCL?
Michigan compiled law 750.4 423. Now, in Michigan, the 750 title is the criminal title. Like in the federal, US 18 is the criminal title. So in Michigan, 750, anything that starts Michigan Compiled Law 750 is a criminal title. So 750.423, the title of it is perjury, penalty, record, and signed defined. Okay. Section 423, paragraph 1 says any person authorized by a statute of this state to take an oath, and the sheriff and Commissioner Wiley are both under that statute, or any person of whom an oath is required by law who willfully swears falsely in regard to any matter or thing respecting which the oath is authorized or required is guilty of perjury. Now, the oath is authorized and required any time they are in their official capacity. They are under oath.
So, in layman's term, thou shalt not lie under the full
Exactly is what-
capacity of their job.
That's right. So to read further is what it says. Well, let me start all over. It says, any person authorized by a statute of the state to take an oath, or any person of whom an oath is required by law who willfully swears falsely in regard to any matter or thing respecting which the oath is authorized or required is guilty of perjury, a felony, punishable by imprisonment for not more than 15 years. Now, if we go to Chapter 2, it says, subsection 1, which is what I just read, applies to a person who willfully makes a false declaration in a record that is signed by a person and given under penalty of perjury, as used in this subsection. Now we have to read A underneath that. It says record means information that is inscribed on a tangible medium or that is stored in an electronic or other medium and is retrievable in perceivable form. Now, with that said, I very quickly want to play a little section.
By the way, weapons of mass destruction, man, there should have been a lot of people that were charged with this.
Yeah, okay, here we go. Here we go. Well, it didn't happen in Michigan, so here we go.
Yeah.
Listen to this.
Let's see.
By Hillsdale County Sheriff Tim Parker and the chairman of the Board of Commissioners, Mark Wiley. I should say good morning, gentlemen. Welcome into the studios.
Good morning.
This morning, we are joined because there's a pretty important item on the ballot coming up for voters, which voting day, election day, is coming up very soon in the month of May, which we're getting ready to turn the calendar to. So I guess, Sheriff Parker, I'll let you start. Tell us a little bit about the proposal that voters are going to find on their ballot.
Well, the Hillsdale County voters are going to see a proposal brought before them on next Tuesday, May 7th, and the proposal specifically for out-county residents, all those excluding Hillsdale City, because they also have a separate millage proposal from the city, but those out and about in the county, they're going to see a millage proposal requesting a 0.75 mils increase, which...
Okay, now...
Well, they did announce their sheriff and commissioner.
Yes, so they announced them in their official titles.
Now,
So that in anybody in the reasonable person standard, anyone would believe that they were operating in their official capacity. Go ahead, Steve.
where's we gonna play the rest of it?
No, we don't need to play the rest
don't
of
need
it.
to play this.
I mean, we could,
Yeah,
but I mean,
we could.
Yeah.
Well, farther on in there, he does violate the Michigan Campaign Finance Act, in which he says, "I
Right.
encourage the voters
That's
to
what
go out and vote."
Yeah, I
for it."
remember hearing
So,
it on
yeah,
the radio.
that was in there.
How long is that?
It's a 30-second ad or something. I
Yeah.
think.
Well, no, that
No.
was an interview. I think that
Oh.
was 9 minutes.
Yeah, I think it was 9
It
minutes.
was like
Oh,
9
okay.
minutes. Yeah.
You know, we maybe we'll put that. We should probably put that
Yeah,
out when we put this out.
We'll get with Penny. Penny's got the full recording. I've only got just a portion of it.
I think I might have it.
You might have it. So anyway, what he said there was this was for the out county residents
Only.
because the city had had a ballot initiative of their own,
Which
right?
passed.
Right. But here's the thing: if I'm going to FOIA a copy of the ballot that was out on May 7th, it will show two things in
probably
the
don't
city.
even have to
There's only
FOIA.
2 items.
Marnie will give it to you.
Well, that's still under a FOIA, the Freedom of Information Act. And Marnie's really good about that.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Again, it's not Marnie.
I know.
It's county clerk.
County clerk.
Cast.
Yeah.
So
Oh man.
so county clerk Cast, she'll probably give that to me, but I'll still file an FOIA. But that's county. I have to file it with the city to get the city ballot. The city ballot had 2 items on it, and only 2. It had the city ballot initiative, and it had the county ballot initiative. Now, I'm going to sit back here and play devil's advocate just a little bit. Now, I'm not, let me be very clear, I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying this is what happened, but being a chess player myself and looking at strategy, if the people of the city thought that they might get double dipped if both of those go,
And they were. Let's be clear. They
were
were.
going to.
Basic
If both
strategy.
of them, if both of them passed, that's a fact. They would have been double
If
dipped.
they're going to take 2.
Right. So the fact of the matter is, if I didn't want those people to show up because they don't figure that they're going to get double dipped, then what's going to happen is every one of my partisans that go out and vote for it gives it a better chance to pass.
Yeah, soften the blow.
That's right.
Right.
But if the people in the city believe that they're going to get double dipped, what's going to happen is more of them are going to show up at the polls
Just click.
and
no.
they're going to vote against
Yeah.
the county initiative.
In my opinion, by Sheriff Parker.
Let me finish
Oh, go ahead.
my qualification.
Yeah,
That
go
is
ahead.
my opinion, and just playing devil's advocate as a strategy. I'm
Sure.
not saying that happened. I can't be in the minds of those people and know that. I'm just saying that's my opinion.
Well, my opinion was that Sheriff Parker, almost sabotaged the city millage, and he sabotaged his own in the process. That's my honest opinion.
His was rushed. His was definitely rushed. You could tell by the numbers. I asked him at one meeting if he could provide me with because at the Republican Party meeting, if you all remember, we were all sitting at the same table. He went through all the things that he does out of the goodness of his heart that he doesn't have to, and each and every one of them I was pulling up in Section 51 of the Constitution and showing people at our table where it was requirement by the Constitution that he does that.
Shucks. What
I mean,
a
this-
nice guy.
This segues into congratulations, by the way, you guys, not voting no on that millage and not
Yeah,
letting it pass.
I was really relieved. If I was a sports fan, I feel like that's what it feels like when your sports team wins. You know?
Well, I mean, we haven't done a podcast, John, since that
No.
the millage, since I would say our win,
And here's
because
but
we're
here's-
not being taxed.
Here's the thing, I know I'm against taxes. I'm against stealing from the neighbors. I'm a big believer in pledges. Right? PBS has been on the air how many years?
Oh yeah.
And they don't take government funds. They're pledged, right?
Jerry
great
pledge.
content.
Jerry
Jerry
Lee did it
Lewis,
for a
yeah.
long time, huh?
Yeah. So my thing is, we live in a voluntary tax system, right?
Right.
And I love this. I would like
No,
to
we
ask.
don't. You're supposed to.
Well, wait a minute. Now we do live
I
in a
don't
voluntary.
remember signing
No,
consent.
we live in a voluntary tax
Social
system in
contract.
which I can pay more if I want to, right?
Maybe.
If I want
don't
to,
know.
I can pay more.
Who the hell knows?
So here's the thing: if I would like to ask this question to the commissioners, any of them that wanted it, how about if they just go, well, you know what? Instead of stealing from my neighbor, Sheriff Parker, if you need extra money, I'll pledge $200 more on my taxes for the next 10 years. They can do that. Do you think Treasurer Treasurer Kaiser, Stephanie Kaiser, you think she would refuse that money? No. Do you think Bambi Summerlot would refuse putting that on somebody's taxes?
Registered her deeds. Come on, John.
I'm sorry. Yes, registered deed. Bambi Summerlot. Do you think she would refuse to put that on someone's taxes if they pledged that? We live in a voluntary tax system. I love this on the left. The left always does this. We need to collect money from everybody so we can do this. Okay, how many multi-billionaires are in the Democrat Party that could give towards that? They don't give any more on their taxes, but they sure want me to give up some of my money for the taxes, right? In a Republican form of government, we do have a voluntary tax system in which we can pay more. So if the sheriff was to come around and go, look, here's the numbers, this is what we really, really need,
And
I
this is
wouldn't
what
have
we're
a
getting.
problem. I don't want to steal from my neighbor next to me that might not be able to $76 on their fixed income may be enough for them to not be able to get their insulin and them to be sick. I don't want to do that to my neighbor. But if they were to come to me and say, John, would you pay more? I would pledge $250 a year for the next 10 years on my taxes for that. I would do that if they could show me the need. I don't have a problem with that. But I do not want them to come down and say, well, we want you to vote to steal from your neighbor that can't afford it, and now they can't afford their insulin. I'm not going to do that. That is something I will not do.
Well, let me say it again. Congratulations, guys. 'Cause, we got to win something, man.
But I'm not going to gloat in it because
no. I'm gloating in my own heart right now.
We can take a minute to
but
appreciate that.
I don't gloat in.
It was closer than I thought.
It wasn't. It wasn't close at all.
Here's one thing.
Yeah.
I thought we were going to get railroaded.
But let me tell you this: this is something that we've lost in our society, and you, being the big sports fan, John, should appreciate this. That we don't do this.
I'm humble.
in high school sports anymore. The biggest thing that we can teach kids in sports is in competition to be a humble winner and a gracious loser.
Yeah.
We don't teach that. So part of, in this, I'm just going to throw this out.
I can still raise my hand like I won.
Yeah, but it's not.
No spike in the football, though.
Let me throw this out. It's not digressing. In Japan, in sumo wrestling,
Yeah.
when a sumo wrestler, if they win, if they show any emotion, they're banned from the sport forever.
Oh, wow.
If one loses and shows any emotion, they're banned from the sport forever because they value.
It's a good thing this isn't sumo wrestling.
Don't the samurai
they
kill
value-
themselves when they lose?
They value humility and graciousness. They value those things. We have lost the value of that in our Western culture.
Sure.
And that I yearn for. We need to bring that back into our culture.
It just, John, what we preach or what we talk about with property rights or Constitution, things of that nature, we take a lot of beating.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not playing victim here. I'm just saying we take a lot of beating. So
Yeah.
when something like this does happen, it's like a relief. Like, thank God something has,
Do you need a tissue?
yeah.
Do you need a tissue?
I do.
Well, there is a light,
Yeah, there is a light. Yeah, exactly. So there are some people saw.
But why do we
something here.
volunteer so much of our time? Why do we do this all the time? Why do we do this? Because we're trying to keep our republic. We're trying to conserve conservatism. We're trying to conserve the ideals and the principles that this country is founded on.
And this doesn't negate to say that maybe the sheriff department may need more money. They may need more money. I'm not saying they don't.
They may need it, but don't ask me to steal from my neighbor for it.
That's exactly it.
The other thing is, I love how they do this. Well, we need it for public safety because we have to protect you. Okay, Castle Rock v. Gonzalez and Scalia said the police have no constitutional duty nor the ability to protect anyone. Their only job
brought up across America.
Yeah, I mean that Parkland.
No, not Parkland. The Florida shooting. The last was that was Parkland.
Parkland, So
Parkland High School.
Corey sent me over that article that they ruled that those cops have no constitutional duty to protect those people.
No, they don't. And here's the reason why.
That solidified what we talk about a lot.
And here's the reason why: because you've been granted, or you inherited, just as a human being being born, you inherited the ability for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. In that, you have the inherent right not to attack someone, but to defend yourself. And that's where
your
the
neighbor.
duty, and that's where the duty is.
And I think that's what we're doing,
Well, that's what we're trying to do.
Well, yeah, I mean, it worked the last time, didn't it? They voted no. We voted no.
Yeah, but police have no constitutional duty to protect you. So this millage was toted around like for more protection.
Now, that being said, let me say something. Police officers do when they hear gunfire and everybody else is running away from it, they do run towards it.
It has nothing to do with it.
That is a mark on the individual and the personality and the honor.
I mean, I would
and
run towards it
courage
too.
of each one.
Yeah, I mean that's
okay.
You're right. That's
so
individual.
let's reward what needs to be rewarded. That takes a special kind of person that is willing to give their life for their fellow human being. That takes a lot to do. But let's not confuse that with the duty under the Constitution. They have no duty under the Constitution.
Right. That's why when I talk to people a lot, I think we have to reevaluate how we're spending money and why we're spending money.
Absolutely, and we need to do it wisely.
So are we like when we're looking at the 911 calls, because the 911 calls are completely up, double from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Like so when if there's a cat in the tree and they call 911, does an officer need to show up?
I don't know many officers that are experts in retrieving cats from trees.
So what would be the point of having that deputy go out there? So I live a half hour away from the jail, so why would you send a deputy all the way up to my lemonade stand?
Right.
You know, like or to retrieve a cat
You
out
had
of a
to
tree.
get that in there, didn't you? You had to get the lemonade stand in there.
I had to
You
do
just
the-
had to.
I mean, it's just
You were just itching. I saw you moving in your seat. You were just dancing around. I thought you had to go to the bathroom, but you
just
had to get
for
that
the
in.
audience, what I was going to do was, because the sheriff department was going out to lemonade stands, if you called one in, they'll come out and get hero status with your child.
It was a PR stunt.
The PR stunt, and what
And
I was
that
going to
cost
do,
money.
and what I was going to do is have a bunch of us dudes out there and be flamboyant and have the sheriff department show up, and here we are selling lemonade at our lemonade stand. Yeah, I was going to film this,
With
but
yellow tights and yellow T-shirts.
and I and I didn't do it, but I mean, I wish I would have in hindsight. I really like would've-
satire.
yeah, satire.
It was
yeah.
it was one of your Dr. Evil plans.
But then again, I'd be wasting taxpaying dollars if I did that.
Absolutely, that would be wrong.
Yeah. So
Not only that, how horrible would you feel if someone did need an officer
at
and
that
you're-
time,
and you were doing a stunt like that? Yeah, that's not.
Exactly.
I mean, we don't need to be wasting money.
And here's the thing: a lot of people go, "Well, you're anti-law enforcement." No, I'm not. The officer's time and his training is very important, and that needs to be used properly. It shouldn't be used for just anything. It needs to be used properly. Let's face it: anytime you use a police officer to do something that's not their training or not their job to do, you're really degrading that officer's
You mean like
training and their
you
ability.
mean like having a pharmacist sell chips while you're at it?
Yeah.
I mean, really. I
Yeah.
mean, they go to school for a long time, spend a lot of money for that degree.
yeah.
Have them check out chips.
Yeah, they're checking out like pickles.
Yeah,
and,
8 to 12. 8 to 12 years to be a pharmacist.
yeah, I mean it's a very important job, and here they are checking out like
And trying to upsell. Would you
milk.
like some Hall's cough drops with that?
yeah, whatever. I mean that's probably more.
Well, that's
that'd be-
closer, but yeah. Yeah.
You know, I just saw that on a.
How would you
Michael-
like a Snickers 2 for 1?
That was on
No,
a
so-
Michael Moore movie. I think it was Sicko or whatever, where they were talking about that, where in like Cuba or wherever. I mean, I don't. It doesn't matter what country, but their pharmacist doesn't have like groceries inside their drugstore.
Yeah, it's a drug store.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And the pharmacist is like, no, why would I sell chips? I go to school for 12 years for this. Like,
Yeah,
you know, like I just thought, I'm
I
like,
didn't
okay.
study chips in any one of my classes.
Right. So why would you have a police officer come out to every call? Now I've heard Sheriff Parker talk about this. I've heard Under Sheriff Albright talk about this. Having to go out to every call.
Right.
And we, as you know, and I know, John, that the 911 calls aren't broken down statistically. They're
Well,
either
and-
emergency or non-emergency. And when they get out there, it could be an emergency or it may not be an emergency.
And that's part of the issue that I brought up at the Republican Party meeting when I tried to ask Sheriff Parker a couple questions and was shut down, and that was I asked him, do you have a breakdown?
There's not one.
I couldn't find one.
And one of the things,
No, 911?
Not publicly.
and one
Yeah.
of my
It's like a myth.
One of the things that I was critical about is I said there's no definition of terms. As a business major, one of the things you have to do is we're constantly breaking things down. And sometimes we have to create new categories, but we're constantly breaking things down.
They do it in sports now.
That's right. So that we have definition of terms, so that when we compare apples, we're comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. What that paperwork said to me was somebody did not take near enough time. It was rushed, and they were trying to get me to compare apples to oranges and make a decision.
The only thing that was brought to the table was 911 calls, and they're double from last year. So what does that really mean?
Yeah, how about if each of us get on the phone and call 911 5 times each day from here on out?
Well, the
911 calls are going to be higher,
yeah,
right?
if I need to talk to my chief of police in Somerset Center, they have me call 911.
Right.
Right.
And I just need to talk to them, you know.
I've dealt with that myself.
Yeah. So this was my problem. There was no definition of terms. There was no hierarchy. I even asked Sheriff Parker this. I said, you've sat here and told us all the things that you don't have to do by the Constitution. I said, do you have a priority list broke down by the Constitution of the things that you're required to do,
Which is
and
only
how
two
that
things.
money is going to be spent?
It's only 2 things, right, John?
There's 3.
Okay, what are those 3 things?
Protect the rights of the people,
Okay,
maintain a jail,
okay,
and maintain court security. Those are the only
Okay.
3 constitutional duties of the sheriff.
gotcha. So can you break that down? So what
Like maintaining the jail.
what
What
would
would that
be
mean? Yeah.
Yeah, what does that mean, John?
The
Just
sheriff.
is he required to feed
well,
him?
I mean, it should be common sense, but
Well, let's
whatever that means.
Let's go. Let's go to the Michigan. Let's go to the Michigan Constitution on that. I think it's 5179.
I have
well,
the app on my phone.
protecting the rights of the people, John,
I think
would be like if you were parking in my driveway and I had an issue
now are
with
the
it.
rights down to ordinances or
No,
certain
not
property
not
lines?
ordinance. It'd be like if John was violating my property. So
Well,
if he was
for example,
trespassing,
if my truck's really loud, but I have to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to work,
no, that would be a civil suit.
Yeah.
So that I would
I'm sorry,
civilly sue you
it's
or
51
vice versa.
It's 5175, Section 75. The sheriff shall have the charge and custody of. That's the title of that
and
chapter.
custody would be his ownership. Yeah.
This says Section 75. The sheriff shall have the charge.
Shell's the word.
Yeah, shall. Well, no, there's a couple key words in here. The sheriff shall, so that means he doesn't have
He must.
Yeah, he doesn't have a choice in the matter. The sheriff shall have the charge and custody of the jails of his county and of the prisoners in the same, and shall keep them himself or by his deputy or jailer. That's it. So he has a constitutional duty. Now,
Like they can't die.
if you look at charge in the dictionary and you bring that up, one of the examples that they say is like a daycare worker is in charge of the children in her care. That means she has sole discretion
Yeah.
over whether they stay in this room or whether they go to that room,
Discipline
or
included.
whether they're released or whether they stay. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So just so we're clear on that, 5175 is very clear. That is, it's pretty clear.
The reason why you bring that up, John, is because you shouldn't be jailed for like monetary purposes. Let's just for an example. So you would let those people out if this is going back to the idea of what we have this justice system for.
Okay. Well, here's a prime example, and I've got
You got $100 bond.
I've got instances of this.
Wouldn't
This
it
is why
cost more to keep them if it was
Exactly.
this is
Exactly.
this is instances that I have of this.
It doesn't take a business major to understand.
Yeah, I
that.
just run a small household budget, and I think I can already see the holes in this system.
I actually have personal experience of these situations happening.
Because you worked in the prison system.
Well, I know because of HJP and some of the people that have come in.
Oh,
and some of the
I got
stuff that
personal
some people-
experiences too because I've
Yeah.
been in jail a lot.
yeah.
So, but what would happen is a lot of times the FOC warrants would come out on like
No, you
Monday
say
or
FOC.
Tuesday.
Front of the
Front
court.
of the court.
Right,
I'm
okay.
sorry, deadbeat dad things.
Sure,
you
sure.
owe money. A lot of those warrants would come out for non-payment on Monday or Tuesday. And what would happen is there was a few officers, and I'm not going to say names, but there was a few officers, and they used to think that it was quite comical. They would go out on Friday night after the courts had closed.
Go get them so
and
they spend the
and
whole
arrest them.
weekend.
So they spend the weekend in there.
See, that's some.
Yeah, that's pretty
Yeah, it
sadistic.
happened to me a lot.
So the problem with that is this.
It's like a game or something, whack-a-mole.
Well, the problem with that is this: if a guy has a job on the weekend or over the weekend, he loses his job.
Yep, and it's
If he
probably like
can't-
the third week of the month. So after that he gets fired, and then he gets evicted.
Yeah, and then
Then
how
he
does
gets arrested.
It's a nasty-
And
it's
how
a-
steal
and-
his $800 car that he's
It's
paying
nasty.
and how
$1,800
does
a year
and
on.
how
house-
does and how does that help the children? Right?
How does it help anybody?
friend of what?
That's just morally wrong. The other thing is that I've seen is there was one gentleman. He was 78 or 80. I can't remember. He was in that range, and they set a warrant out for his arrest for animals at large.
like horses.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so they went out and arrested him. He had no clue that there was a warrant out for him on that.
Wow.
And so the thing is, if they had gone to him and they would have said, Mr. Joe Blow, do you know that you've got a warrant for your arrest for this? He's lived in the community his whole life. He would have said no. If the right thing to do is, look, can you go up to the courthouse and get this taken care of today?
Or by Friday.
Well,
Today.
Or whatever.
If you can't, if you don't, then we're going to have to arrest you and do all that, right? This costs time, this costs money, this costs resources. This also adds to the overcrowding situation in the jail, in which then we tried to steal from the taxpayers to build a bigger one. And then we need more officers with legacy costs that we can't even afford now.
Well, and
Yeah,
we haven't even
legacy
gone
costs.
into that yet, but to make no mistake, the next step here is to build a new jail. This has been toting around for a little while now.
Do you remember when I was running for sheriff in 2016, the jail was only at half capacity that whole election time?
Exactly.
And it's full.
And that was the first time
It's
it was at
completely full
half
Get 'em in there,
capacity.
guys.
Now,
Get 'em
yeah.
in there.
Yeah, so
it's keep it full on purpose, so we need a new jail.
well,
Yeah.
we assume
Well, it's gonna be hard
that
to
it's
push
like
for
that.
this
It could be
Yeah.
it could be just a lack of common sense. Let's face facts. Not everything is nefarious. Not everything is evil.
And not everything's
a lot of
petty.
yeah, a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of times.
Yeah.
It's the system. It's not necessarily the people. Sometimes it's the system.
That's why I said we need
But
to
you have to have
overhaul all
people.
this.
But you have to have people in those positions that have common sense and reason, that understand a Republican
Logic.
form of government and the
Yeah.
Constitution, and can stand up and be counted. And that's not easy. I mean, ask Commissioner Games how easy it was to be the only one voting no.
Yeah, the only
It's
one.
not easy.
The only one that looked like she had any reason or logic to it.
Well, and I could tell Commissioner Caswell had very much logic and reason, but he voted yes, and you know that he's got to vote his conviction, and I'm all right with that because I see he uses a lot of times he uses good reason and common sense, but I could tell the anguish on Commissioner Games's face through that whole discussion. I could see it.
Yeah.
And I could tell it wasn't easy for her to be the only dissenting vote. It's not easy.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be the odd man out.
Maybe I've just got a little bit more thicker skin or something. I don't know. That's why I'd be a bad politician, man.
Well,
I tell you.
I don't know, man.
I'd be
Maybe
throwing
you'd be-
shoes,
Well,
man.
Richard-
I'm a
Richard-
European politician. I'll throw shoes.
But Richard Mack, I talked to Richard Mack some about that issue when he decided to sue the Clintons in 1982.
And he's still with us, guys.
Yes.
You can follow him on Facebook.
Yeah.
He's still with us. He
But-
made it.
But Richard Mack, he told me of the anguish that he went through, and the prayer that he did, and talking it over with his wife and his family, and the hand wringing that he went through. That was not an easy decision to do. When you talk to Sheriff Rogers from Elkhart, he's no longer sheriff down there, but Sheriff Rogers
Retired.
when he had to write a letter, and he got with Sheriff Mack, and he said, I got these federal agents coming in and raiding this farmer's farm all the time, and I know in my heart it's not right, but what do I do? And Sheriff Mack said, well, I'll help you. I'll support you in this, and helped him write that letter. It wasn't easy for Sheriff Rogers. He had a lot of hand-wringing. He went through a lot of prayer. He went through drinking Malox like it's Kool-Aid. Yeah. It's not easy to stand against. It's not easy being David, standing against Goliath. It's not easy.
By the way, again, kudos for the segue here, because this is actually going to go into our next topic. But before we do that, because our next topic is going to be DEQ.
Oh, okay.
But
DEQ?
Dairy Queen?
No, Department of Environmental Quality.
Gotcha.
Okay.
I see. I didn't understand when you said that. I didn't know what you were going. Okay. No. The number one reason, or the number one thing that I kept pushing for with the county commissioners is, if we can't afford the $2 million in legacy costs with the officers that we have today for the retirement,
on top of what our payment is,
on top of what we have, so that Commissioner Bruce Caswell is constantly talking about this. We need to put $200,000 a year for the next 10 years, which we're not doing now. Right?
No, we are doing it now.
We're just starting.
That's partly why he looks frazzled a lot, because he's the one doing the budget and trying to figure out how to come up with this money.
So
to do this
$200,000 additionally on top of everything that we're doing today to pay for the past that we haven't paid for.
Yes.
Is that correct? Am I saying that in my assessment?
And here's
here?
the thing: it's not all on the old county commissioners or even the present county commissioners. What happened was, when Reagan came in, he said, I don't have to be an expert on everything. I just have to know how to surround myself with the experts in those areas. Right. County Commission did somewhat the same thing. They hired a money manager to handle that legacy costs and to handle those investments so that they would have enough money for the retirement.
And that firm lied.
That firm lied.
Great.
It
sounded like a smart idea.
They did a bad job. And so what happened was, for a long time, we went underfunded. And then all of a sudden it was like, hey, guess what? in the next 10 years, you guys got to come up with $2 million.
But this isn't exclusive to Hillsdale. I mean, look at the
it happens to a lot of counties.
No, look
Right, right.
look at across the nation with the teacher funds.
Even more so
or
with
the
other counties, I would say.
Or government just as a whole. There's billions of dollars. They're billions of dollars behind across the nation.
This is why
It's almost like it's done by design. I have a hard time with
But this is why
fractional reserve.
Well, what happened was when these unions got involved, this was what caused a lot of the problem. SEIU is one of the worst unions in the world. But anyway, that's my
quick, John, on this stuff.
So, but part of it is this is why we've seen throughout the nation municipalities going towards 401ks and having officers fund their own retirement.
Right.
A lot like all of us poor unwashed masses out here that are doing the same thing, right? Because a social insecurity is not going to be there when it's time for me to retire. Let's face facts. It's just not going to be there. And I love it when people call that an entitlement, because it's not. That's people paying into a fund to take out of, just like a 401k, but they're using the government as the broker to invest that money. The problem is the government didn't invest that money. They put it right into their own pocket to use it for regime change in different places.
And this is becoming more common knowledge to even like a layman such as us, Steve.
Yeah, you'll even see it in Reader's Digest articles.
Yeah. I missed that. I used to get Reader's Digest.
They were cool. That's actually where I think I remember learning about fractional reserve banking, and it was frustrating then.
Well, the segue into the DEQ. I was talking with Mayor Adam Stockford, and he was telling me that DEQ, the state unfunded state mandate, says that the city of Hillsdale, is going to have to replace all their piping from house to road.
Yeah.
That's he estimated
just on Ripon or the whole city?
No, that's everybody.
No, Ripon they don't have to do, or Vine or that's done. That's done already. No, that's done
it's
already.
not done already.
No, I'm saying those water lines, new water lines.
No,
those
I think
are done.
they had a boil advisory last week on it.
Well, that's any time the water goes down somewhere, they have to do that.
John, any new construction has to be done according to DEQ at this point.
Sure.
But any old construction has to be replaced.
Retrofit. Yeah.
Now he said
none of that gets grandfathered in.
No.
Nothing gets grandfathered
in. And the
in.
reason why is because of the Flint lead water crisis.
When they make these decisions on emotions, we all know it's a failure. But
it's destined for failure.
Yeah. So now he brought up a number like $10 million. There was I don't know where that number came from. You might as well double it. Let's be fair.
Oh well,
when you're estimating
depends on the firm
numbers,
you get to do it.
When you estimate with government numbers, you might as well double it, maybe even triple it.
And part of that is, like I said the unions before. We are a heavy union state. So what happens is, when I used to work in Indiana with my cousin, we had a business down there. We did new homes and stuff. We did a lot of geothermal and things like that. And rule of thumb was anytime it was industrial or municipal, the price tripled.
Yeah, for sure.
And the reason why is because of all the regulation, that unnecessary regulation.
Bullshit permits.
Yeah, you've got 10 people that have
everybody's
jobs.
got to get their hand in the kitty.
Yeah, everybody's got to jump through the hoops too.
You got 10 jobs that are somebody's brother.
What are you choking on over there? Spit?
No, I still got effects of a chest cold, but you've got 10 people that are people's brother-in-laws that are some inspector, and most times they're not even doing anything. For instance, just in Hillsdale County, we have a state inspector where we have a county building inspector, and people are supposed to do building by the code. And one of my jobs through routine management is one of the things that we do is we come in and do inspections. And we usually do inspections after people start having problems, such as their heat bill's $600 a month and they can't figure out what's going on a brand new building. And we go in and we do a blower door test on it, and we shoot it with an IR camera and find out that there isn't a stitch insulation in the thing. But when we pull the building permit, we see that it was approved and passed, right? And so one particular incident we had, just one recently, was that same type of thing.
You'd say that was common practice.
Yeah, and when it came down, the inspector who passed it when it was built came in and found 22 code violations after my report. Where was that inspector prior to that being passed? because those code violations that they picked out, most of them were within plain sight that the inspector would have saw had they come to the site and inspected. The problem is, it's I know that builder. We play golf together. I'll go ahead and
he's a good
pass
guy.
that. So what we have is anytime you get you get government involved, you get these kind of things. And so you're paying triple for something that isn't even happening.
So John, the state, because DEQ is state level.
Yes.
Okay. So
Which means it's even deeper.
Which is, okay, but regardless of all that, yeah, well, we know that the bureaucracy is bigger. So they're coming to these communities, including Detroit,
Yeah.
and saying, you got to, can you imagine, Detroit's huge. When I'm
Right.
saying Detroit, Wayne County,
Right.
right?
Well, like the footprint of it is huge.
Yeah, right.
Comparative to like other populous cities.
Yeah. So like a lot of times Metro Detroit is huge. Okay, so like it's big
In population.
No, I'm saying in square
the
footage.
footprint.
Right, but even population
Is there a million people
if you
anymore?
take a square mile,
Well, there's a million properties.
if you take a square mile in Detroit compared to a square mile in Hillsdale, you've got way more residential homes in that
Right.
square mile in Detroit
No,
than
right.
what you do
Like go to
in
Lincoln,
these smaller communities.
like go to Lincoln Park
So
or
what-
Allen Park, where
10
they jam up the
billion,
houses.
If it's 10 million to redo Hillsdale, it's 10 billion to redo Detroit.
So Detroit, Adam was saying that.
Exponentially
So
more.
Adam said that Detroit is suing DEQ
Yes,
because it's impossible for them to.
especially on the timeline that they've placed.
Well, who cares about the damn timeline? I mean, to replace all those, it would literally bankrupt them completely,
Well, and here's the other thing. Now,
regardless of
this
timestamp.
This is getting into my expertise a little bit. We study this stuff, and we do these things. Do you know how many houses in Hillsdale have lead pipes in them?
All of them.
A lot of them. A lot of them. They still have lead pipes.
I think I got
Now,
lead
you know,
pipes.
Say
you know how
mine's
many.
really
You know how
old.
many. But do you know how many people are getting lead poisoning from them?
None.
That's right. Here's
All
here-
things are safe in moderations, right?
Here's
John?
how
Yeah,
lead.
exactly.
Here's how lead. And I used to teach the lead safe
You got
work
some pot?
practices.
Yeah.
I used to teach
No.
I used to teach the lead safe work practices at the college. I was the EPA training facility manager up there. Lead, when it enters the body, doesn't leave. And so what happens is we find that pregnant women and children absorb 50% of the lead that they come in contact with, whereas adult males or adult females that aren't pregnant only absorb about 10%. Now the reason for that is there's three things that we prohibit when we do lead safe work environments: sanding,
For inhalation.
well, you sand. So when you sand, the other thing is when you can't heat it. So if you're using a paint stripper, you can't heat it to 1100 degrees because what happens is
why don't you give them an example? Like if you're doing siding on a house.
well,
Yeah.
okay. Here's one of the things that we had to do in weatherization. If we were doing, let's say we were
paint
going to
on
do,
the house.
no, let's say we were going to do
Well, paint would be the most common.
dense fill cellulose. Okay, blown in cellulose, dense fill.
Okay.
It's much cheaper to do it from the outside of the house than the inside of the house. And let's face facts, most of the houses that we're doing that on are wood siding or some sort of a press board lap siding.
Right.
And at that time, it's probably been built before 1978, so most definitely there's lead in the paint.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like my house.
Probably
So-
asbestos board.
That's right. So what we always had to do is we had to set up a containment zone. So any of that dust that came out, anybody that's in that containment zone has to be protected from it. And when they leave that containment zone, they have to be cleaned and leave that containment zone. Once the job is done, then that containment zone is torn down and put away. That way nobody can come in contact with that dust. Here's where the problem comes in. A lot of children were getting lead poisoning from their fathers that worked in
From like their
construction.
clothes.
Yeah, because what had happened is they'd be in this dusty environment all day with this lead paint. They'd come home and pick up the children and hug the children. The children put their arms on daddy. And then what do children do with their hands? They always put them in the mouth.
Yeah.
And
So
it had a sweet taste too, right?
That's, well, no, that's
Mercury.
No,
I think mercury because
no, that's antifreeze. That's what we.
well, antifreeze
That's what you've
tastes
been
sweet.
thinking. That was Mountain Dew, and it's not.
No, like lead paint on toys. I was told had a sweet taste.
I don't
I
know.
don't
I've
know.
never,
I don't
I've
know.
I think
never
it's
chewed on it.
mercury has a sweet tooth.
But
whatever.
The fact of the matter is,
Nobody's drinking mercury.
I'm out
Steve.
there tasting it.
where children were getting this poisoning was from the dust they were getting in their mouth. The other thing is, like in Detroit and some of the poor areas, what had happened is a lot of that lead paint was peeling and chipping, and kids would peel it off and chew on it. Yeah, and they would get lead poisoning because it would
Not
enter their body. So there's two ways that lead enters your body: either ingestion or inhalation. Right.
Yeah.
So if you're not
snuffulation.
if you're not taking that lead and turning it into dust, or you're not turning it into vapor
Food.
at 1100 degrees where you're breathing it in,
Right.
it's not going to go into your body.
That's
So
why fluoride's so bad in the water systems, because you're inhaling it in the shower. Not in it's.
Right.
I mean, you're
Is it
drinking
really?
it.
Okay, let's.
Yeah, but you're
let's-
inhaling it in the shower.
You're digressing. Let's stay on the lead here.
Yeah.
Okay, let's stay on the lead. So what happens is this water that's passing through these lead pipes is not sanding the pipe, and it's not raising the pipe to 1100 degrees,
Right.
where it's going into vapor.
It's like having a river run, and
That's
then
right.
when you step on it, it gets cloudy.
So the water going through there is not picking up any of the lead. So as long as you're not chewing on the pipe, the lead pipe's not going to
Or
hurt
like
you.
an earthquake would cause a disruption.
It doesn't matter. It's still not going to sand it and put it into the water.
Okay.
And if there's
Like a parts per million.
if
count.
there's an earthquake, Steve, do not stand at the kitchen sink and drink. Okay, get to a safe place.
I'll be on the front porch drinking.
Just promise me you'll do that. Okay.
Yeah, don't
So-
worry.
So anyway, what happened in Flint was they had these pipes and they had lead. What they did was when they started adding the chemicals, when they started pulling the water out of the Detroit River and adding the chemicals to it to make it drinkable, those chemicals then reacted with the pipes in the lead.
Makes
And
sense.
that made the lead then go into the water.
Flake into the water.
And then they started drinking that because now you had particulate in the water. If Hillsdale is not putting those chemicals in the water, there's no problem.
Well, a lot of people have wells.
Well, and even wells, if you're not a well,
Yeah.
you're not putting chemicals in it.
Right, exactly.
The only time you're putting chemicals in water is when you're storing it because you have to retard any bacteria growth so that people don't get sick when they drink the water. Because standing water, the same thing, when you go out in nature, you don't drink from a standing pool.
Well, thank you, teacher, for all that. But this is going to bankrupt
But do you
every
underst-
community.
But do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So here's what's going on because of a certain situation that happened
Yeah,
in
it's
Flint.
emotional. It's emotional.
What we're going to do
based.
is we're going to do this knee-jerk reaction. We're going to go, oh, we're going to save everybody because most people are ignorant about how lead enters the body. And so it's very easy to then rob the people. And that's really what this is all about.
And I told Adam, this is this is going to bankrupt everybody. Now we already know, John. We know, like assessing, they're taking over the assessing, like so to the point where they're taking everything away from townships. When we had the MTA guy out,
Yep,
they're literally taking everything away from local control.
that's right.
Everything.
You know why?
Literally.
Because people that get elected in bigger places like the state are much smarter than the rest of us.
But when does it get to the point where your local government says no?
Anytime the local government wants to, because local government in a Republican form of government has the most authority.
So I told Adam, why don't you just say no?
Which we still are a Republican form of government.
Yeah, we're supposed to be. Right? Everybody
Holding
thinks
on,
it's,
holding
well, the guy
on,
from MTA
guys.
thought we were a democracy, but
Well, you'd be surprised how many people do.
No, we're not surprised.
Yeah,
that's
no,
that's
yeah,
why
that's-
we're doing this.
that's why
that's why we're
that's
doing
why I
it.
donate 40 hours of my time every week to educate.
Hey, which I appreciate,
No,
guys. I really do.
When does the local government say no? So I was telling Adam, they're bankrupting every community on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
This DEQ situation could potentially bankrupt every township,
Okay, here's the thing.
every city.
And that brings up this point. We always talk about the difference between independent and dependent, right? So we, as a people, no longer wanted to be dependent on the king. We wanted to be independent. And so we took the steps to be independent. And I talk about this with children. Parents sometimes make children dependent on them because it gives them a sense of power.
Yeah.
Because the old adage that
Hey,
you
my
can't
kid's
take-
mama's just like that.
you can't take power. Power has to be given. So what happens is it goes back to that old adage of a fish. If a man's hungry and you give him a fish, he'll be back every day. But if you teach him to fish, he'll never be back, right? So that's the difference between making someone independent or dependent. And let's make no mistake about it. The welfare system in the state was created to make people dependent on the state so that they will give their vote to the people who are
Yeah.
giving them things. The DEQ in the state is doing no different with this whole thing. They're trying to make people dependent on the state and rather than being independent.
Well, we need to say no to that on a local level.
Right.
I told Adam, don't wait, because I think Hillsdale, like Adam was saying, that he believed that the board was going to wait to see the outcome of Detroit. I said, don't wait, get on board with them.
Wait a minute. I've got a prediction. The outcome of Detroit will be bankruptcy.
Yeah. Well, they're already bankrupt.
I know, but
Right?
it'll be more bankruptcy.
They're going to dissolve the municipality. Or?
Well, the thing is I mean, John, I mean, when we're bankrupt, we can only go so far bankrupt, right? Like I'm in the hole. Someone like you and I, we could probably go 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 grand in the hole. We can't really go no further.
We can go 10, 20, 30 grand in the hole.
Well,
Why
I mean,
didn't somebody tell me this?
You give me a lot of
I'm
credit.
thinking medical. I'm thinking medical.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Oh, they'll do that for you on the
happens
ride
with-
there.
That happens with one visit to the hospital.
Outside, okay, so if you leave medical out of it, you could probably, well, you got a house, so I mean, like,
Yeah.
you could go bankrupt, and you're not going to go too deep. A government can go millions of dollars in the hole, literally millions.
here's the
and
reason-
millions.
here's the
Basically
reason-
every time.
Here's the reason why I can't print money.
Right, you don't have the monopoly of money printing.
Yeah, but if you can print money,
Or digits.
you can go as far as you want to, right? That's the problem with the fiat system that we're on. That's exactly why, if we look at the 700 years of history coming up, one of the kings that was that they were upset about was because he started making a fiat money so that he could control it rather than letting the economy control the money.
We have to say no to the state level bureaucracies, these state level ideas. They're overreaching.
Again, though, it takes people that have the courage. And don't get me wrong. I'm not admonishing people that
Right,
can't say no.
we're not
because
anybody in our community.
when you're looking down the barrel of the gun, it's way different than somebody standing off to the side going, "Tell him no." Right. It's a lot harder when you got the gun pointed at you.
I'll be there. I'll be there for you, buddy.
A buddy of mine used to say this in the prison system all the time. Rink Briner, a great guy, but him and I used to pal around the prison system. He had a saying that just tickled me all the time. He'd always go, "It ain't no fun when the rabbit's got the gun," and that's the truth, right?
Yeah,
so.
Sure.
It's hard. It takes a lot of courage. It's a lot of uncertainty. It's a lot of drinking Malox. It's a lot of ulcers. It's tough. It's tough to stand up against Goliath. It is tough to be a David, but the virtue and the nobility and the honor comes in being David.
Well, I mean, we can, as a community, step like in a multi-class lawsuit with Detroit.
Sure.
We can do that, right?
It's
Sure.
It's just a head count.
It just takes money.
I don't know if it takes a lot of money to say, hey, contact them and say we'll be on board if there's an issue too.
No, it still takes a lot of money. Have you ever seen a lawyer retire poor? There's my point.
I mean, mayor to mayor, you can do that.
It doesn't matter. Have you ever seen a lawyer retire poor?
I mean, it doesn't require an attorney.
Yeah, it does.
I'll just say, hey, we're on board with you.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, and that's something. Maybe not joining the lawsuit, but going, hey, you know what?
That's what I meant.
Put my name at the bottom of that Declaration of Independence too.
Yeah.
Right. John Hancock put his real big, but there was other people that were willing to pledge their
That's right.
their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor.
We're going to pledge our community to fight with you.
Their lives, their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor.
It doesn't require an attorney. You just say no.
Well, it doesn't take an attorney to pledge your life,
right?
Your fortune and your sacred honor.
And
to others.
the more people that just say no, or the more communities that pledge, they're not. The DEQ ain't nothing.
I'm going to correct you here a minute because OCD. The DEQ isn't anything.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, here's a good. This journalist said a long time ago. It says the government's greatest contribution to human wisdom is the discovery that the taxpayer has more than one pocket.
I like that. Send that to me.
I will. I couldn't get enough of it.
Well, this is wrap up here, so there isn't much more. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the community.
Well, before what are we anticipating in fruition of
fruition?
Fruition, yes.
Fruition.
So I like my way. I say.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine.
What you say?
But you put
fruition.
But you put the wrong emphasis on the. You put emphasis on the wrong syllable.
It's all about the verbiage, right? It's all about the verbiage.
You never want to put the wrong. You don't want to put emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Maybe it's not who's saying it. Maybe it's who's hearing it.
Right.
Oh, okay. You're a liberal.
Oh, there you go. That's a good one. That's a good analogy.
Might be a liberal if.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, Steve's a liberal.
Oh yeah, right. I thought I was libertarian on the car ride.
Well, it changes depending on what position you take, right? So,
Whichever group doesn't steal money, just sign me up for that one.
So what's in fruition? Fruition? Am I-
Yeah,
Fruition.
what are we
Fruition.
anticipating?
I'm not anticipating anything. I never
why
hold
don't you
my
emphasize
breath.
what you mean, Steve?
Well, I just want to know, do you think he's just going to be like, all right, you caught me?
We can't predict that.
I can't predict that. Here's my thing. I've turned it over to the authority. I've done all I can morally. And
You're
by
talking about
principle.
this particular
Yeah.
situation with Sheriff Parker.
That's
Yes,
it.
yes, sir.
At this point in time, if now what's going to happen is, if you want to know what the technical process is,
Right. I guess that's what I
Okay.
wanted to say.
Well, the
you
technical
know.
process is Sheriff Parker has 15 business days to answer this complaint, and he can provide any evidence or anything like that. That all then gets sent to me, and then I'll have a certain amount of days then to rebut any of the evidence that he sends. And so I've already started working on that rebuttal. And then that will go to Lansing, to the Michigan Campaign Finance Authority. And at that point in time, they, as a third-party independent investigator, will make one of three decisions. They can either accept that there was under their investigation, that there was no harm, no foul, and drop it. They can say, okay, there was a foul, but it wasn't that bad, so we're just going to fine. Or they can say, well, we believe that it was under Section 57, paragraph 4, and that it was a knowing and willful violation. Right. And then they can send it to the Attorney General's office. Now, once it goes to the Attorney General's office, that doesn't mean that the Attorney General is going to do anything with it. The Attorney General can take it and go, this is petty. The Attorney General can go, well, we're just not going to spend the time and the resources to go after that. And that's their...
At least we all know now.
Right, and that's their prerogative, because they're an executive branch of government, so they have discretionary authority. So they have that discretionary authority. Either way, no matter what happens, I've done my duty, and
Right.
that's all I'm required to do is my duty.
That's it.
Thanks.
Was there anything else there, Steve?
No, that's what I was shooting for.
Okay.
Okay. God bless everybody.
Read your constitutions.
Bye-bye.
Bye.